The students to the video lecture on the topic Bank Board Bureau. In our earlier lecture, we discussed about the Indradhanush plan for the improvement of the public sector bank. As a part of the improvement of the public sector banks, government initiated Indradhanush plan since August 2015. And in that Indradhanush plan, the government suggested 7 areas of reforms for the public sector banks. In order to improve the efficiency and profitability of the public sector banks, government initiated this Indradhanush plan and they suggested that the bank should concentrate and work in 7 different areas to improve their performance. Out of these 7 areas, out of this 7-point strategy, one of the strategies out of the 7-point is about the Bank Board Bureau. This Bank Board Bureau established in the Indradhanush plan, and the work of supervising the activities of the public sector bank is assigned to this Bank Board Bureau. In this particular lecture, we are going to discuss about the establishment of Bank Board Bureau, that is the background behind establishing this Bank Board Bureau. Then we will see the composition of Bank Board Bureau, and at last we will discuss about the functions of the Bank Board Bureau. So let us start our discussion on the topic Bank Board Bureau. It is the establishment of Bank Board Bureau is considered as a major step in the banking sector reforms. As I mentioned now, as a part of the reforms in the banking sector, this Bank Board Bureau was established, and it is a part of 7-point strategy of the Indradhanush plan, and this Indradhanush plan we discussed in detail in our earlier lecture. As per the 7-point strategy of Indradhanush plan, this Bank Board Bureau was established on 1st of April 2016. The Bank Board Bureau is a self-governing autonomous body of the central government. The basic intention behind establishment of the Bank Board Bureau is that it is an advisory authority. In this particular advisory authority, eminent professionals and some senior officials used to work, and they do suggest some improvements in the management of the public sector banks. This Bank Board Bureau was appointed and it works as a watchdog for the performance of the public sector banks. This Bank Board Bureau headquarters is at the central office of Reserve Bank of India, that is in Mumbai. And this Bank Board Bureau, as I mentioned, it is one of the parts of 7-point strategy of the Indradhanush plan, and this Indradhanush plan was initiated for revamping, that is for the improvement of the public sector banks, because the public sector banks, they have to compete with the private sector banks and with foreign banks. Therefore, it needs to improve. It is essential to concentrate over the performance of the public sector banks, and therefore the government take initiative in the year 2015 through Indradhanush plan for increasing the performance and increasing the efficiency of the public sector banks. Basically, the committee was appointed by Reserve Bank of India in the year 2014 under the chairmanship of P.J. Nayak, and it is known as Nayak Committee. And this Nayak Committee suggested for the establishment of the Bank Board Bureau. This Nayak Committee mentioned the need for the establishment of Bank Board Bureau in the year 2014. After that, on 15th of August 2015, then Finance Minister Arun Jaitley announced the strategy and major area of reforms through Indradhanush Plan. And after the announcement of the Indradhanush Plan in 2015, Bank Board Bureau, the first Bank Board Bureau, was set up in February 2016 under the chairmanship of former Controller and Auditor General Vinod Rai. The Bank Board Bureau is the replacement of the earlier body of the government. The earlier body of the government which used to appoint the senior level official in various banks. That government board was known as Appointment Board of the Government. They used to appoint the senior officials in the banks. And now, after the establishment of Bank Board Bureau, the function of the Appointment Board of the Government is handed over to the Bank Board Bureau. Therefore, we say this Bank Board Bureau is the replacement of the Appointment Board of the Government. Here, this responsibility of this Bank Board Bureau is to appoint the top level officials and to make the top level appointments in the banking sector. And after discussing these basic facts, now I am going to explain about the composition of the Bank Board Bureau. There are total 7 members are working in this particular Bank Board Bureau. One is a chairman, and second one is one secretary, and 2 ex officio members used to work in this Bank Board Bureau. And these ex officio members are Secretary, Department of Public Enterprises, Secretary of the Department of Financial Services, and one Deputy Governor of the Reserve Bank of India also works over this Bank Board Bureau as ex officio member. And apart from that, 3 part-time members used to work over this particular Bank Board Bureau. And out of these part-time members, it is suggested 2 of which are from the private sector banks. So this is the composition of the Bank Board Bureau. After discussing the brief introduction and the composition of Bank Board Bureau, now we move towards the functions of the Bank Board Bureau. The very first function of the Bank Board Bureau is that it has been established to provide assistance to public sector banks to restructure their business strategies, because the public sector banks, they have to compete with the emerging private sector and foreign banks. And in order to compete with this private sector and foreign banks, it is a need to restructure the strategies. It is important to make and to frame different business strategies. And in framing these business strategies, this Bank Board Bureau will provide certain guidelines to the public sector banks. The second function is about the loans, bad loans and stressed assets. The Bank Board Bureau functions in order to assist the public sector banks with the strategies to deal with the issues of bad loans and stressed assets. In order to sort out the problems of the bad loans, in order to sort out the problems of increasing non-performing assets in the public sector banks, it creates a certain type of stress and pressure over the public sector banks. And in order to sort out these issues, this bank board bureau is established, and the work is assigned to this bank board bureau in order to make some strategies to provide the guidelines to the public sector banks to come out of this problem. This is the second function of bank board bureau. And the next function is about the strategies for raising capital through innovative financial instruments and innovative financial methods. It is the important function of the bank board bureau. The bank board bureau used to provide various guidelines, and they used to design various strategies for raising the capital of public sector banks. And the most important function of this board bureau is this bank board bureau, it gives recommendations to the government in order to appoint the top level officials, top level appointments in the public sector bank, like while appointing the full-time directors, non-executive chairman in the public sector banks. This bank board bureau provides the recommendations to the government for appointment of these top level official posts. And the last function of this bank board bureau, it suggests plan for consolidation and merger with other banks. Whenever any public sector banks decides to make the consolidation and decides to merge their undertaking into the other public sector bank, in that case this bank board bureau suggests various plans to these public sector banks for the consolidations and mergers. Basically, these consolidations and mergers takes place because of the increasing non-performing assets problems in the public sector banks. And this bank board bureau provides a valuable guidance to the public sector banks in this concern. So in this way, these are the important functions of bank board bureau, which we discussed in this particular lecture. In this particular lecture, I stop here. Thank you.